You've got ideas, you've got ambition, you've got no time, or so you think. I'm Marissa Lonick, and I help busy moms with big dreams and no time. Join me each week as I dive into time management strategies, goal setting and achieving framework, and inspiring guests who are juggling mom life, work life, fill in the blank life. Dreams don't work unless you do, and just because you're a mom doesn't mean you can't still make it happen, whatever it means to you. Welcome to the Mama Work It podcast. Hello, Mama Work It fam. Welcome back to another episode of the Mama Work It podcast. I am your host, time momager, biz momager, and mama for Marissa Lonick. Today, we are diving deep into the topic of self-empowerment, particularly if you are a mama having been through or currently going through the end of a relationship with your significant other. So our guest is Beverly Price, a divorce coach, podcast host, community creator, and statement jewelry designer with a desire to help women move from where they are to a place of empowerment. As a breakthrough and divorce coach, she provides knowledge, support, and insight to help women going through the emotional challenges of divorce. Beverly is on a mission to help 100,000 women to live the powerful and fabulous lives they are made for. And I cannot wait to hear all the amazing tips, wisdom, and insight she is going to share with us on today's episode. So when she's not coaching, helping her communities, podcasting, or designing bold statement jewelry, Beverly enjoys living by the beach in South Carolina with her husband, Will, and 4 Havanese dogs. Beverly, thank you so much for being here.
You are just amazing. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. And I have to say, we added a 5th dog at Christmas. This one, a golden retriever.
Dog. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
We're dog fans.
Yes, I can tell. That's awesome. That is awesome. Okay. Well, Beverly, I'd love to know, just to kick this off, tell us just a little bit more about you. What led you to where you are today and what you do?
Sure. Well, I grew up in a household that gave me everything I needed materially, but didn't know how to foster self-worth, self-esteem, using your own voice, or being strong, if you will. And I'm like a lot of women. When we were little, we were trained to be seen and not heard. We were trained to be small and defer to men. So that followed me all my whole life. And then as I started my professional career, I worked my way up and became an executive in financial services. And everybody thought I was just so together on the outside and confident, but they didn't know I was dying of insecurity on the inside. Low self-esteem, no self-worth. And I was terrified that you would find out that I was like that on the inside. So I went through that process. And I finally decided it was somewhat of a toxic workplace. So I decided to leave, and I began my coaching business, and also on the side, my jewelry design business. I've been coaching for about 25 years. But what I found was, on my journey, there was a lot of pain. There was a lot of self-searching, and there weren't things like coaches back then. So I had to kind of do it on my own. And also, having been divorced before, I developed a passion for helping divorced women. So I combined this passion for helping divorced women with this desire to share my message that it is possible to grow and empower yourself. And that just kind of blossomed in me, because I had gone through, at one stage, my husband said to me, Beverly, you make everybody's life miserable that you come into contact with. And for that moment, I had to admit he was right. Um, and so that was the springboard for all of my emotional growth and personal self searching. Um, and so that's been a journey, and I want to share that, and that's why I call myself a divorce and empowerment coach. But even with that, I felt something was missing. I wanted to help more women, and so I created a podcast called Her Self Expression. There were some statistics that I saw that just I thought were a tragedy. Like 79% of women don't consider themselves confident, and 4 out of 5 women consider themselves less than other women, and 50% don't think they're beautiful. And that just appalled me. And that led me to springboard to the podcast and also creating communities for women to support each other.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I would put money on it that there are people listening or watching today that felt what you felt during those moments,
Mhm.
or are feeling that right now where the insecurity is just almost stifling, right? And maybe from the
Yeah.
outside looking in, it looks like you have it all together, but internally you feel like a hot mess. I know I have been there. I have been there
Mhm.
myself. So I can only imagine that many other people experience this or maybe going through it right now. And I'm just so happy there are resources out there
Mhm.
like women like you, women, who are paving the path to talk about these things because I think often people are, uncomfortable sharing that vulnerability or feel like, oh, I must be the only person feeling this way. Everyone else looks like they have it all together or
Yes.
they're super confident. So I'm so glad we're having this conversation today. And I'm so glad, you're doing what you do out there.
Well, thank you. I think comparing is one of the most deadly things we can do as women. And I call it, I always compare my insides to someone else's outsides. And because of that, I always come up short. And so if we can move forward and reduce the need to compare, then that will make our journey all the easier.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I call it comparisonitis.
Yeah.
It's about the
Beautiful
worst
term. Yeah.
disease you can have. Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to borrow that.
You got it. Go ahead.
Okay.
All right, Beverly. So, personally, I haven't been through a divorce, but I am sure we have listeners who have, or perhaps are going through this right now. So, what
Hmm.
exactly is divorce recovery coaching, and why is this so beneficial to women in this season?
Well, to kind of preface that, I've shifted my focus a little bit to be more all encompassing. So, divorce recovery is a slice of what I do, but I bring all the elements of a divorce coach, which is a goal oriented process to take a person from the earliest stage of where they're contemplating a divorce all the way through finishing the divorce. And it can also be for women that have been divorced for a very long time that are stuck in the emotions, the negative emotions, and it's holding them back from living a full life. So I do things like educate people as to the divorce process. I find out what their concerns are, what their ideal life is, and what we can do to get them there. Whether it's skill building, whether it's working on emotional growth, whether it's finding your voice, and many other things. On the empowerment side, it kind of overlaps. So the finding your voice, stepping into your power, not playing small. And divorce is something that can really destroy self esteem even more and make you feel small. For example, if you don't understand the process, if you're sitting in a room and it's to you, it's all legal mumble jumble and you're just signing whatever, or if you don't know how to pick a good attorney, um, all of those things can lead to feelings of being less than. And then after the divorce, you look back and regret what you did or wished you'd done it differently. So I guide them through a process of education, self awareness, knowledge, skill building, and assessment to get them to the other side so they can not only participate fully in the divorce, but also can have a thriving life after.
Yeah. And when you were talking about this and your process and your coaching expertise for not only people going through it, but for people who have gone through it, I think that's important to reference because I imagine it's a grieving process and grieving
Hmm.
can last years, right? I mean, it's a
Hmm.
loss and you go through different stages of that. So, there are
Hmm.
perhaps different things you need to be working on at different times, but it's not like all of a sudden the papers are signed and your life, a couple months later, it gets back to the new normal. Like I'm sure this
Exactly.
lasts. It can last for some, maybe years. So it's a process.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And my experience is that if you don't do the work on yourself, if you don't look at your marriage and your ex and look at the choices you made, then you are destined to do one of two things: either repeat those mistakes over and over again with failed marriages, or to live a life of being just consumed and hijacked by negative emotions. I'll give you an example. There was a woman I know, she wasn't a client, who had been divorced for 8 years. And she turned to her ex and said, "You haven't suffered enough." Now, that is not a place that a healthy, happy person wants to be in for the rest of their life. And so that's the kind of thing we work on.
Yeah. Yeah. Understood. It reminded me of that expression. I'm going to butcher it. I can't think of exactly what it is, but it's like, wanting to see someone else do badly or suffer, but then you drinking the poison, right? Because you can't let
Hmm.
go of the issue there.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, speaking of that, I often hear that expression, you can't move forward if you're looking back, right? So,
Right.
talk to us a little bit more about your take on this as a divorce coach, particularly, and what other elements you feel are crucial and important for that healing journey.
Well, I think there's two components to address what you said. One is letting go, and the other is acceptance. Because if you can't let go and accept that the marriage is over, that accept that your ex wasn't the dream person you thought he would be, to accept that life is not supposed to be some dream to live up to, then you can't grow anywhere. So those would be the two things I would say have to happen first before other things can follow.
Hmm. Yeah, great advice. So, for the women listening, if there was just one change, like one small action thing that any of our listeners could make toward their self empowerment journey, whether they're dealing with a divorce or not, because you and I both know self empowerment is good for anyone, for any woman, for anyone
Right.
listening, right? If you ask me. So, what would that piece of advice be?
Can I share two?
Oh, yes, you can share three.
Okay. Well, the first one is eliminate our negative self talk. We are just famous for putting ourselves down and discounting ourselves. Have you ever been complimented on a dress that you're wearing and your response is, "Oh, that's 20 years old and it's just, raggedy." Or, uh, "You are so, your hair is so beautiful." "Well, I can't do it, but this was my hairdresser." Or, "You are such a kind and loving person." And you could say something like, "Well, I'm really not like that most of the time." we tend to send these messages to ourselves. I'm stupid. I'm not beautiful. Um, Nobody loves me. Those kinds of things that end up creating this self fulfilling prophecy. So that's really one to combat that and to replace that with positive self talk, whether it's through affirmations, whether it's through journaling. I suggest to my clients that in their journaling every day, they write 5 things that are awesome about themselves. And from day to day, they can't repeat the same things. So that self talk, I think, is a biggie. And then the other thing that really helps someone like I was that had no self esteem and no self worth is to believe in yourself, and to believe in yourself no matter what, to believe in yourself no matter what anybody says or how they treat you. And the more you believe in yourself, the more it leads you on that empowerment journey.
So good. So good. Let's go back to the self-talk for a minute because I
Okay.
think there's so much we can say about this. Oh my gosh. I'll share an example that I learned years ago. And I can't say that I always practice it, but I have the
Okay.
awareness and it does stick with me. And I tell other people about it. And I stop myself sometimes. I stop myself sometimes. I'm human, right? But I went to a seminar years ago and the speaker said, women do this often, right? We really defer compliments, kind of like you were saying,
Mhm.
like we really downgrade them, downplay them. We feel uncomfortable accepting them, right? And she said she challenged everyone to say the next time someone compliments you, literally just say thank you and stop.
Mhm.
And
Exactly.
stop. Like bite your tongue, don't go on to say like how much the outfit was, what a bargain it was, or how old it
Yeah.
is, or, oh no, not me. Like, you know what I mean? Just all the examples you said.
Yes.
Just say thank you and shut up.
Exactly. Beautiful advice.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think, and it's easy enough to do, but it's hard in the same sense because a lot of people do have that self-talk where it feels uncomfortable to receive the compliment in that way and just receive it.
Yeah, I think it's actually kind of ingrained in our DNA that all along we were taught to view ourselves as second best to men. Men got to go and do things that we weren't allowed to do. So they were the highest priority, the best, there were phases in time where people wanted to have boys more than girls. So it's almost that we have to reprogram ourselves for a different language. And part of it's because not to blame our parents or ancestors, but they didn't know how. They weren't taught how to foster empowerment or self esteem or self worth. And so they're passing down what they learned and being the role model for what they were taught. So if
Yeah,
we can break the chain to our daughters, you know, and help them foster self worth and self esteem, that's the greatest gift we can give them.
absolutely. Yeah. And even if you're listening and you didn't feel like you necessarily grew up with these biases or this effect, there could just be some subconscious stuff in there, right? Or just stuff that needs to be sort of worked through.
Yeah, I think it also can come from society and
Mhm.
media and advertising and things like that. So even if you had the best foundation you could have, there's still influences.
Totally. Yeah. All right. And then the second point that you had said was to simply believe in yourself. And I'm a fan. I'm a fan of this. I think it's very clear. I think it's probably not the first time a lot of us have heard this, although the reminder is always great. But tell us tangibly how someone can do that because it sounds a lot easier said than done, I think. So, what are some
Sure.
specific things that someone listening or watching can be like, how can I actually put that into practice for myself on a daily basis?
Sure. Well, I would first start with an inventory. And I would have a client list all the things that they do well, times that they've succeeded, times that they felt jubilant and joyful, and look at that and soak that in. Because one of the, we tend to ignore our accomplishments and our positive attributes and focus on the negative. So clearly focus on the positive. And if you can't think of many, put it aside and come back to it the next day and start digging deeper and challenge yourself to dig deeper. So at the end, you have this picture that fosters that. The second is I use affirmations to help strengthen that. And I believe that the way to use affirmations is to also say, if I were a woman that believed in myself, what would I look like and what would I act like? And then imitate that woman and imitate her over and over and over again until you become that woman. Another one is spend time with women that do believe in themselves, because science has shown we become like the people we hang around with. And then finally, simple things like putting sticky notes on your fridge and on your bathroom mirror that say, I believe in you. Those are some simple things that can be done to start you on your path. But we also have this tendency to do things for a very short period of time and not continue them. So that's the trick. We have to make that decision that we're willing to do the work for the long haul.
Yes, absolutely. And just to throw in some habit stats in here, guys. So it takes 21 days to solidify a habit. And my
Mm-hmm.
recommendation would be, after hearing all of those amazing tips that Beverly just shared, just pick one of those things and start doing it every single day for the next 3 weeks, and then see that it's going to stick. It's going to become something that hopefully becomes part of your daily routine. So whether it's the sticky note on the mirror and you repeating it back to yourself when you look in the mirror every morning, or whether it's, one thing added to that list every day of those accomplishments. Or I loved your
Mm-hmm.
idea earlier of like the 5 things that you appreciate about yourself, and that you can't repeat them. I think that's the challenging part, but that's also the
Yeah.
fun part of it too. So these are some great tips, great ideas. And if you want to make them a habit that sticks, you know, commit to at least the 3 weeks to
Mm-hmm.
getting past that hump. And then it should flow much more easily for you.
Yeah, do things like put it on your to-do list, write it on your calendar, and then each week reflect back your successes for having done that, because it's not easy.
It's not, but it can be done, and it is so
Yeah.
possible. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing that. All
Oh,
right,
you're welcome.
Beverly, we're going to hop on over now to our lightning round. These are just random fun questions, just so our listeners can get to know you a little bit
Ooh,
more personally.
yeah. Put
All
on the
right.
spot.
Yeah, are you
Okay.
ready?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Tell us, what book are you reading right now?
It's a book by it's called Untamed by Glennon Doyle that my daughter gave me for Christmas.
Yeah, that's a good read.
Mhm.
That's a good one. All right. What is your cocktail of choice?
I do not consume alcohol, so my cocktail of choice is water.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. I mean, nothing wrong with water, guys. I'm a big fan of hydration. I think it helps
Yeah.
a ton, not just for your productivity, but also your skin.
Hmm.
Um, let's say they made a movie about your life. Who would you want
Ooh.
to play you?
Oh wow. Annette Benning.
She is so classy. Good
I
choice.
love her work. Yeah. Or Charlize Theron.
Another good
I was
choice.
blonde at one stage in my life.
Actors dye their hair all the time for roles, so
Yep.
I'm sure Charlize would make a great Beverly. All right, last fun question. What if you could only
Okay.
eat one food for the rest of your life? What would it be?
Ooh.
Calories don't count.
Man, that is a toughie. I want to say just all carbs, but I love bread. I love bread. So it would
Yeah,
be like homemade bread
homemade bread. Yes, I like that extra added flair there. We don't want any
with
store-bought
butter.
bread with butter. Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. All right, Beverly. Well, before we wrap up, tell our listeners where they can find you in case they want to get in touch.
Sure. You can find me at herselfexpression.com. That's my website. There's a tab there to go to my podcast, and there's information on my divorce and empowerment coaching and the communities that I've built. You can find one of my communities on Facebook. It's called the Woman's Divorce and Empowerment Group. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram.
And let us know about the jewelry too. We didn't even talk about your gorgeous
Oh,
jewelry, but
yeah.
please drop the website here and we'll put that in the show notes too.
Sure. It's called Nastava Jewelry. It's Nastava jewelry.com. And I came up with the name based on three women I admire. The Na is from my daughter Natalie's name. The Sta is from my daughter Stephanie's name. And the Va is from my mother Virginia's name, Nastava.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the jewelry is gorgeous, you guys. You have to check it out. And Beverly's podcast also is so uplifting, so inspiring. She has some amazing guests on there. Your girl here has been a guest on her show, and it was a wonderful chat. So be
Absolutely.
sure to check it out.
She
Thank
was
you again,
fabulous.
Beverly. Oh, thank you. Well, thank you again, Beverly, for being a guest on the Mama Work It podcast. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I just thoroughly enjoyed it.
You've been listening to the Mama Work It podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and would love if you could take a quick minute to leave me a review on whichever platform you're listening from, and maybe even send a note to a fellow mama friend recommending it. Reviews and recs help this podcast grow and reach more like-minded, awesome moms. And if you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click that button so we can stay in touch, girl. By the way, if you haven't checked out the Mama Work It website, please do. There are lots of free resources and great articles there that can help you with the juggle of work life, mom life, wife life, fill in the blank life. So head on over. Thanks again for being part of the tribe. I'll see you soon, but in the meantime, keep on working it, mama.